Hey everyone, welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, and I think you know what I'm about to say next, right? I know you're thinking it. He's about to say that he's excited to be here today with us, and you're right, I am. And it's not just something I'm saying. I truly am excited. But today I'm really excited because over the weekend, as I've told you here, just a little behind the scenes kind of thing for this podcast and YouTube channel. I oftentimes try to kind of, or all the time, I really try to come up with, ideas to share with you, in advance. I don't just kind of plop down in my chair and just start talking. I have some sort of, game plan here, as it were. And over the weekend, the thing that came to me, and the weekend is when I devise these things, right? Like when it's nice and quiet, I don't have a lot of appointments. I don't have a lot of, people that I have to talk to and kind of stuff that I have to do. I can sort of be quiet and be still with myself and see what arises, and that's really kind of what mindfulness is all about in and of itself, right? That it's about seeing what arises. And that's where, bringing curiosity into the process is very, very important. And so, or very helpful, I should say. And so over the weekend, something that arose was something, it was actually, I think, Friday night. I was actually struggling with a little bit of technology. I have this real dilemma. I'm using two different calendar programs. I'm using a Gmail program and also an Outlook program because the email address that comes from my website is hooked up with Outlook, but my Gmail account is where I started my calendar. So a lot of my appointments are under Gmail and others are under Outlook. And I'm just having the craziest difficult time trying to merge the two so that I can just simplify things. And so I was grappling with that a little bit on Friday night, I think it was, maybe Saturday. And I was kind of, like I just said, just grappling with it. I was going to say struggling, but it wasn't that much of a struggle. It wasn't suffering for sure, but it was grappling. I just couldn't get it figured out, And in the process of kind of going through, and it's really on my phone, I was looking at everything on my phone because that's where I need to know. I need my calendar to work while I'm on my phone, right? Because if I'm away from my desk, if I'm at my desk, it's very easy. I can jot it down. I can put it in later. But it's when I'm, out for a walk or a hike or something, and something comes up and says, somebody says, oh, can I have this, can I meet with you this time? I have to book it right away, or else somebody else could book that time from my website. So it gets tricky, so it's very much a mobile thing that I was trying to figure out. So everything was on my phone that I was trying to figure out the other night as I was kind of, grappling with this process. And something occurred to me while I was doing this. First of all, I had it almost figured out, right? I thought it was completely figured out. I was like, okay, that's it. Now I got it. Like I don't want to go into the details because it's not very exciting and not very interesting, I don't think. But suffice to say that I got it. I was like, I got it. I figured out. This is how I need to do it, and this will work. And this is beautiful. It's great. And then I look at the mobile app for Outlook and I realize, well, there was something with it that was not perfect, right? And it's just the way it views, like, ironically, they don't have a 5-day view, which is really strange to me, or a 7-day view. It's either you can look at a whole month, you can look at one day, or you can look at 3 days at a time. And I was like, why? Why do they do that? That's so inconvenient for me, which of course, the me-centered universe that we all live in, right? It's all about me, right? Of course it's not, but that's the way it feels, And so I was like, oh, I thought I had it. It was all figured out. Now this thing came in. I don't know if I can live with this, right? Because it's very uncomfortable. It's inconvenient, But then I realized something, and what made me realize this something was that, when I went into my Google Calendar on my phone, I looked at it, and all of a sudden I realized that it felt so familiar that it was like uncomfortable somehow. Like I looked at it and I realized that, where I was expecting, after opening the Outlook and saying, oh no, I don't like the way this looks and like the color of everything and the type. And so it just doesn't look right to me. Right. And then I looked at my Google, which I've looked at every day for the last 3 years. Right. And something really striking, hit me in that moment, which is that, I wasn't very happy with the Google calendar either. The reason why it becomes so exciting for me, or the reason why it became something that was so important for me to have what that program gave me, right, was because of the familiarity. Right? The mind always craves the familiar. And we're going to get into this tomorrow too, but that's something that's just universally true, right? Like our minds and our bodies crave the familiar, even if that familiar is uncomfortable. Even if it's damaging to us, we crave it. Right? Even if we know, and we talked about this, last week or the week before when we talked about consumption, right? Like even though we know that spending a lot of time on Facebook is not a great way to spend our time, we do it anyway, right? Because that's, and this is just one very simple example, but the idea is that our bodies and our minds crave that familiarity. Right? Even though we know it's not serving us, even though we know it's uncomfortable, even though we know it's not getting us further towards our goals and our, accomplishing our obligations and all that kind of stuff, we still do it, right? Because again, the mind craves the familiar. And so why does the mind crave the unfamiliar? Oh my gosh, I am so tongue-tied today. Pardon me. I really didn't get a good night's sleep last night. It's been very cold here in Colorado this last few days, like sub-zero cold, which is very, very unusual for this in this area of the world. And so what happens is then we have the heat turned way up in the house, and I am a person who cannot sleep in warm. Like it really, like my body does not enjoy being warm when it's sleeping. So I need to have a window open, right? But of course, when the air outside is like 15 below overnight, it's just that it's not fair for the rest of the family, So I unfortunately didn't get a lot of sleep last night, and so pardon my tongue tie, but the idea is that, why does the mind crave the familiar, right? And the very simple answer to that question is that the mind craves the familiar because the mind, there's two reasons, right? The first thing is that the brain itself, right, is processing so much information all day, every day, like literally billions of pieces of information are passing through your brain at extraordinarily fast speeds, and constantly. It's every day, every minute of every day. Your brain is just processing so much, because what we don't realize, right, is that as you kind of like scan a room or a landscape, right, with your eyes, right, like your brain, if left to its own devices, if you had never seen what you're seeing there before, right? Like let's say you're looking out of your window, right? And you're noticing the trees and the grass and the park and the road and all that kind of stuff, right? If your brain had never ever seen that before, what your brain is going to try to do is it's going to try to register every blade of grass, every leaf on the tree, every last bit of detail in everything you can see. And what it's doing really is it's examining this and determining, is this something I need to be worried about or not, right? Is this something that's scary in front of me, or is it something that's friendly? Like, do I need to be worried, or or am I safe, right? And so that's where your brain actually creates these things called schema. Right. So like when you look at a table, right, you don't have to sit there and say, oh, what is that thing? Like even if it's a table you've never seen before, and it's a table that's completely designed differently from anything that you see that has four legs and a flat surface, it is a table. Right. And that's the way your brain very quickly pops it into that category, because it has associated that thing so many times before, because you've seen so many tables in your life, that now that becomes this sort of automatic thing that your brain categorizes. It's called a schema. Right. And so we have a lot of those. Right. It's not just tables. Right. It's also a field of grass. It's a road. It's a car. It's it's an airplane. It's all these things. Like we don't have to sit there and contemplate and try to figure out every single thing we're seeing. And to the superlative end of that, we're not even considering what that thing is, because it's such an automatic reference that we have, right? So again, anytime you see something that has four legs and a flat surface on it, your brain automatically thinks table without any other consideration, right? It's very quick, it's very neat, it's very handy, right? And that's the way your brain wants it to be because, again, your brain has a lot to worry about, right? Because I only talked about your one sense of sight, right? But you're also sensing everything you can hear, smell, taste, and touch. And so it's a lot of input. It's a lot of data that your brain has to figure out. And so your brain, again, by its very, functioning, it creates these schema and these automatic kind of ways of dealing with things, right? And so the same thing applies when you're, I'm sorry. The second reason why your brain likes to automate things and likes to create things that are completely, habit driven, right? Like just again, like the schema is that, the other thing that your brain is doing, your brain has a lot of responsibilities and a lot of, resources that it's working with to accomplish those responsibilities, right? But really, at the end of the day, your brain is really just worried about one thing. When you boil it all down, it's really just worried about one thing, and that is getting oxygen-rich blood, right? Because oxygen-rich blood is what keeps your brain alive, and your brain relies on your body for that, right? So therefore, anything that your brain feels like it has done up to this point has kept that oxygen-rich blood coming in, right? So even the decisions that you've made that are just absolutely like you look back and you say, how could I do this to myself, right? Like going on Facebook, right? Like how many times have you gotten up and said, I just wasted 45 minutes on stuff that I just don't even care about. I could have been working on my book. I could have been reading something. I could have been studying. I could have been spending time with the people I love. I could have been petting my cat. I could have been watering my plants. I could have been just doing so many different things, but I just wasted my time there on Facebook. That is another example where your brain knows that if it sits there watching Facebook or television or whatever, right, that's what it's been doing for the last X amount of years, and it knows that doing that poses no risk, right? There's never been a time that you've been doing Facebook and you got attacked by somebody physically, right? So your brain knows that, right? Your brain knows that as and had that happened, right? Had it happened that one day you're scrolling through Facebook and somebody, carjacked you or something, I mean, some horrible thing like that. I'm sorry to use that kind of example, but if something really, kind of dramatic happened to you, well, then guess what? You would never feel good about watching Facebook again because your brain would be saying, no, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. And so you would have to overcome that. You would have to kind of work through that and get to the other side where your brain felt again that, okay, this is safe. That was just a one-off situation or something like that, right? And so that's where your brain is dictating your life based on your safety, right? And so it's safety and convenience. That's really why the brain is looking to automate as many things as it can, right? And so that applies, not just to the activities that we're doing, for lack of something else to do, right? Like watch, scrolling through Facebook instead of reading a book or what have you, but even in the very functioning of our life, right? This becomes something that is very, very prevalent, right? Like your brain wants you to do that same thing the same way every time, right? So when so for instance, when you open the door, right, with your right hand every time, that's exactly the way your brain wants it to be because that's something it doesn't have to worry about, right? Like all those functions, you walk up to a door, your right hand goes out without thinking about it, you turn the knob without thinking about it, you pull it or you push it, and you walk through, and no thought has to be given to that. So in the midst of all that, again, that becomes one of your schema, right? So your brain doesn't have to involve itself with that, right? It can conserve its energy. It doesn't have to, worry about that, right? So when we talk about mindfulness, we're talking about being, with whatever is happening, right? By paying attention to what is happening, right? That is what brings us into the present moment. Now, the one of the main reasons why we want to do that, right? Why we want to bring ourselves into the present moment, and to maybe kind of change some of these automatic ways that the brain works, and this sort of automatic, process that happens, right? The reason we want to do that is because sometimes we can be fooled. Right? Just because it's, or let me say it this way, right? That when we're opening the door with our right hand, right? And even while we're walking, right? Just like walking across a room, right? And you can do this as a thought experiment, right? You could get up from wherever you're sitting right now, or maybe you're already standing, and just go ahead and take a few steps. Don't count them. Just take walk from where you're standing to the refrigerator. Right. Or if you're on a train or something, walk to the other end of the car. Right. Now, don't do anything special, walk in any kind of way, count your steps, do anything. Just literally just walk from one point to another, point A to point B. Right. Now, you'll find that when you did that, right, something really interesting happened. You didn't have to think about it. Right. Because you've been walking since you were 2 years old? Actually 2. Yeah. 1.5, 2 years old. You've been walking all your life, right? So if you're a 32-year-old person, you've literally been walking for 30 years, right? Every single day, right? And now we have these things that people wear on their wrists to tell them how many steps they've taken, and I know people average something like 5,000 steps a day, right? So 5,000 steps a day you have taken without giving a single thought to any one of them. So the question then becomes, if you're not thinking about taking the steps, well, what are you thinking about? And that's where mindfulness comes in, because what you're likely thinking about in those moments is what's wrong with life. You're likely thinking about a project at work that's not going as well as you hoped. You're likely thinking about, the one that got away. You're thinking about, maybe something negative that had an uncomfortable and difficult experience that you recently had. You're thinking about something you're afraid of in the future, right? Or maybe you're thinking about, a trip to Hawaii you're going to take, right? The point is that even if it is something extraordinarily positive, like a trip to Hawaii, I would love to leave this -4 degrees that we have today in Denver, Colorado, and go to Hawaii. That would make me really happy, right? But if I'm walking and I'm thinking about Hawaii or a trip to Hawaii, and guess what? What I'm doing is I'm removing my own happiness. Right, I tell you often of a landmark study that was done by Harvard University. You've probably heard of that little college out there in Connecticut, or Massachusetts, actually. Sorry, Connecticut's Yale. Sorry, it shows you my education. Anyway, they did this study using smartphone technology. Okay, at Harvard University in Massachusetts, and so the thousands of people participated in this study, right? Many thousands of people, perhaps hundreds of thousands. It was a lot of people, right? And so the way the study went was that you'd be walking along, right, and you're doing your thing, whatever you're doing during the day. At any given time during the day, it was randomized, it just popped up at various times during the day. It wasn't predictable. It wasn't, had no pattern to it or anything. It was very, very well designed. I mean, this is a very, very well studied study that they did, and something that is cited by many, many of the big names in science. So let's all just take it as a given that it's a very well designed study that was done. Okay. So your cell phone would buzz, right? And you would look at it and there'd be a text there from this, program. And the text would say, what is it that you're doing right now? And it would give you a multiple choice and you'd pick the closest thing to what you're doing. And then another text would come in and it would say, and where is your mind right now? Are you thinking about what it is that you're doing, or are you lost somewhere else, right? And you would answer that question. Then the last question became, what is your emotional status right now? Right? Just very simple questions, right? And what they found, right, the name of the study, the subtitle of this study is "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind." right? So you can see where this is going to go, right? That even if, and this is something that in my very first seminar that I attended with Dr. Dan Siegel, he dropped this on me and I almost fell out of my chair, literally. That he showed how the data was very, very clear, right? Like path analyses that are done on this study and other studies, because this is just one. There's many, many studies that have been done similar to this one, but this is the one that's often cited, maybe because it's Harvard, maybe because it was so well designed, maybe because of all of that, whatever. It's the one that's very often cited, right? Is that, again, the wandering mind is the unhappy mind. So what Dr. Siegel told us as we sat there and just soaking it in, literally, I almost fell off my chair, was that even, he said, let's say you're in the shower, right? And you're thinking about, anything but being in the shower. And he said specifically, even if it is an upcoming or a recent vacation to Hawaii that you're thinking about, something unbelievably positive, that by thinking about that thing while you're in the shower, instead of just being with what's happening in the shower, being with the sounds and the smells and the sensations and the experience of taking the shower, right? You are literally less happy than if you were paying attention to what's happening in the shower. Even if you're thinking about something amazingly positive, you're still less happy than you would be in that minute, in that moment of being with the shower. So that tells us a lot, right? Because a lot of times we feel like that's what we want to do, right? Like while we're folding laundry, what do? We put on a TV show, or we just try to space out, or we just do whatever, right? Just to get out of the drudgery. Turns out that drudgery is more happy than even, thinking about something, again, even something really positive. Okay. So now, So the aspect of mindfulness, right? What mindfulness asks us to do is to pay attention to those things that we're doing, right? As we're doing them, right? Which again takes the autopilot out of takes us off of the autopilot that our brain wants us to be on, right? Again, your brain wants everything to be just cruising, just don't think about walking, don't think about opening doors, don't think about doing this stuff. Instead, just keep doing the same thing you've always been doing because we like it, because it's not something I have to devote a lot of resources to, and I know that I'm safe, right? That's what your brain is saying. That's a quotation marks around your brain speech there, right? And so what mindfulness asks us to do, again, is to break free from that and to really just pay attention to what is happening, right? Because the reason why the wandering mind is an unhappy mind is because, number one, most of the time we're not thinking about a trip to Hawaii, right? That's not usually the first thing that comes to our mind when we're not focused on what we're doing. Oftentimes what we're going to think about, in fact, we're 3 times as likely to think about something that is wrong in our life. Right? That's the negativity bias, right? That's the way our brain is going to go. Because again, your brain wants to be safe, right? And it knows that by paying attention to the negative aspects of your life, those are the ones that could be harmful. And so your brain is always going to tend towards those negative things. And I think that's what Dr. Siegel was talking about. If I was taking that class right now, I would ask him this. I didn't know to ask him this 5 years ago when I took this seminar, but today I would ask him, is it because thinking about a Hawaiian vacation is likely to bring on that same clinging and aversion that we talk about, right? Like if I'm in the shower and I'm thinking about this beautiful trip to Hawaii that I took a month ago or I'm about to take in a few weeks, am I getting into that clinging, like, oh gosh, I really want to be in Hawaii right now. I don't want to be here, right? Or oh gosh, I really don't like being where I am. Why can't I just get back to Hawaii, right? Like that kind of thing, right? Because that's where our suffering comes from. right? And so when we can just pay attention to the shower or to walking or to doing whatever we're doing, well, then we're neutralizing that clinging and aversion. So I have a feeling that's why that happens with the very positive thing that we might think about. But regardless, it is very clear that the fact is that if we are present, we are going to be more happy. Again, my philosophy and my work revolves around the fact that the happiness is merely blocked by that clinging and aversion and the suffering that comes from that, right? So either way, though, we know scientifically, right? We know that being present means being happy. So there are so many different ways, there's so many different opportunities that we have. Remember, I talk about mindfulness as a moment-to-moment opportunity to come back to where we are and to do so with acceptance, with compassion, and with curiosity, because that will alleviate that clinging and aversion that causes us the suffering and leave in its place nothing but happiness, right? So therefore, a present mind is a happy mind, right? Which is the other way of the Harvard study, right? So there's a number of ways in which we can practice this, and this is really awesome. And I know I've taken 25 minutes now to kind of lead up to this, and sometimes I feel like these podcasts should only be like 10 minutes long because sometimes I get a little windy. But the fact of the matter is that there's so many different opportunities. Yes. Practicing meditation is one of them, right? Like really just, every time our mind wanders off, bring it back, right? Just that process, whether you're doing that formally by sitting with your eyes closed, or you're doing it informally while you're washing dishes, while you're walking across the floor, literally just pay attention. Okay, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right? These are ways in which we can do this. We can bring ourselves back to the present moment, but there's also some really great built-in ways in our technology, right? In this little guy right here, this is how, and for you on the podcast, I'm holding up my iPhone, this is a great way that we can do this, okay? I'm going to invite you to do a couple of things on your phone right now. Like seriously, like right now, as soon as you're done with this video, which is only about 3 more minutes left, go into your phone. What I want you to do first is I want you to rearrange where everything is, right? Go ahead and put things in different folders and kind of, move things around, right? And even if you're not putting things in different folders, maybe you have all your work stuff in one place and all your, Facebook and social media stuff in another place and all your, pictures and stuff in a different place. It's okay to leave them in the same folders where they are, but move where those folders are. Right? Because you would be amazed. And this is what came through to me the other night while I was grappling with my Outlook, Gmail confusion thing that was going on, right? Like I found that when I go to my phone, I'm not really paying attention. Like my finger is just going to this space on the phone where that thing has always been. Right? So I know that if I have to look up something on Facebook, I go to the second page, upper left corner, right? And that's where it is. Right? So I'm not thinking about swipe up to the left and push that button. I'm just doing it without thinking about it, right? So again, what I'm doing is by doing that. Now, this doesn't mean that some great revelation is going to come to me instead of, just because I don't know where my Facebook app is on my phone, right? That's not the point here. The point is more that what we're doing is we're training ourselves. Remember, one way or the other, you're always practicing something. So you're either always practicing being present or you're always practicing not being present. Or maybe it's some combination of the two, right? But the idea is that if we can get these little opportunities to practice being present, well, then we have a chance to actually create this new habit of presence, which is going to make us happier, which is going to make us healthier, which is going to make it easier to accept, easier to it's going to promote compassion for inner and outer compassion, and it's also going to promote curiosity. And then, right, we're developing our own well-being. We're creating our own sanity, our own happiness, our own well-being. So again, that's a great hack on your phone, right? Like, just again, like if this folder is on the third page of your phone, move it over to the first and take something from the first page and put it over to the third. And what that means is that every time you look at your phone, you're going to have to come back to this present moment and really pay attention to what's happening. All right. Now again, your habit is going to form very quickly, right? Over the course of maybe 3 weeks of having this new setup, you're going to be in a new habit. So switch it up again in 3 weeks, right? And keep it fresh. Keep it, unfamiliar. Because then you're going to be able to really, again, pay attention to what's happening. Because we use our phones so much, right? Mine is always with me, right? You can see the timer's going. I'm 20, almost 30 minutes here. Because we use our phones so often, it's a great opportunity for this practice, right? But there are other practices too. There are other ways in which you can do this. Another great one is to open every door with the opposite hand, right? So if you're right-handed like I am, then every time you walk up to a door, your right hand is going to automatically be the one that reaches out, right? Because it's your dominant hand. That's the reason it's dominant. You do most of the things you do with it, right? But every time you walk up to a door, challenge yourself to use the opposite hand. Now, just like any other practice that I talk about, you're not going to get it right all the time, right? It's not going to be like, just thinking about it, every time you're going to open the door with your other hand and everything's going to be great. No, there's going to be I forgot. I just opened every door today with my right hand. I forgot. Be good to yourself, right? Be kind to yourself. Be forgiving and just try again. Okay. Because again, it's not so much about, training your muscles. It's about just paying attention. So just the fact that you notice that you haven't been doing it, boom, now you're in the present moment, right? Like that's how this works. Okay. So opening doors with the opposite hand, eating with the opposite hand, brushing your teeth with the opposite hand. What are some other ones arriving? That's another thing that a lot of times when we pull into the supermarket parking lot, right? And we just jump out of our car and we grab our bags or whatever, and we go, or our mask or whatever, and we go into the supermarket and we just go shop and we get back out, and this whole thing happened without ever really paying attention to it. So when you pull into a parking lot and you turn your car off, give yourself 10 seconds and arrive with intention. Just really pay attention. Like, okay, I am parked in this area of the parking lot. There's a white car and a yellow car next to me, or whatever it is. I see people walking around. I see how people are dressed. I feel the temperature that it is. It's very cold, or it's very warm, or it's very pleasant, right? And now I can pay attention to walking across the parking lot, and I can open the door to the supermarket with my opposite hand, and now I can notice, I can arrive in the shop, in the store. I can arrive by noticing, okay, what are the sounds I'm hearing? What am I seeing here? What am I feeling? What are the temperature inside the store feel like? Was it very warm outside? Now it's very cold in here. Was it hot? Was it cold outside? Now it's warm in here, right? What is it that's happening? Because again, it's not so much about, determining anything, and it's not really about just getting through things, right? It's about being present with what is happening. And we can do that with these simple little hacks. Okay. So again, using your opposite hand for the ordinary stuff you do, right? Like even if that's filling up a glass of water, use your left hand on the spigot and your right hand to hold it, or opposite, whatever it is that you do it the opposite way. And try that for a couple of weeks and see what starts happening. Because in all likelihood, what is going to start happening, in fact, I'm nearly positive that this is what's going to happen, is you're going to be paying attention to the things you're doing. And you're going to, by paying attention to just a couple of them, right? Like let's say you set the intention to open the door with your opposite hand. You're going to find how many times you use your right hand for everything else. And then it's going to start occurring to you like, well, why don't I use my opposite hand now too? Right? And the minute you've done that, that's when you're present. And that presence will be built upon as you keep doing it. and you keep doing other things, and it's just something that will keep feeding itself. And the beautiful thing is that you're going to have a built-in reward system, which is your happiness, right? Because after all, you can be happy for no reason at all. And this is the way to do it. All right, if you have any questions about this, again, I know this is a long podcast to get to that one little 4-minute practice that I'm talking about. But if you have any questions, and if you want to try it, and after a couple of days you're confused, or how do you get to do this, I can't remember, whatever, please feel free to reach out. I would love to give you some more sort of pointers, or help you to overcome whatever it is that's blocking you from doing this practice, because again, this practice is really, really beneficial. All right, everybody, wishing you well. I hope that you have a great day. I hope that everything is I hope you're going to meet the rest of this day with presence, with acceptance, with compassion, for inward and outwardly directed compassion, and most of all, or equally, curiosity. And I'm going to try to get some good sleep tonight and have a better podcast tomorrow. Thank you for listening, everybody. Thank you for watching. I wish you well. I'll be back in tomorrow. Take care.